Okay, we'll start with this. Unbeaten up-and-comer of the United Kingdom, Dee Allen, posted this via her social media, and it reads, "A fight for the near future. People have spoken. 3 weeks and 3 days ago, I proved to the world I'm a world-level contender, picking up the WBC International welterweight title, the first of many to come. 4 fights, 3 knockouts, and no losses. Entered the pro scene November 2021. Made my pro debut March 4th, 2022. Won with a stoppage in 1 minute 40 seconds of the first round. 7 months down the line, I'm UK's #1, world #8. Come on, Eddie Hearn. Wasserman, women's fight, Sky Sports.
She's looking for Jessica McCaskill. She's trying to get Jessica in the ring.
I told you guys ahead of this weekend's fight that, regardless of what happens at 140 pounds with Chantel Cameron, whether Jessica wins or Jessica loses, she's still a major player at or around these weights. She's still somebody that's got several targets on her back. And Dee Allen, she's aiming for her.
Been watching Dee Allen.
I've been paying attention.
Know who you are.
Dee Allen is an unbeaten up-and-comer that hails from the United Kingdom that shows devastating punching power, great dimensions for the weight, the kind of fighter that could campaign as either a welterweight or even a super welterweight. And I think she'd be an even stronger, more devastating puncher at super welterweight. Better still, she's in the early stages of her career. She saw action four times this year alone. You know, when a fighter's in the early stages of their career, that's when they fight most often, to get those rounds in the bank, get those experiences.
Round out his fighters, sharpen their skill set, sharpen their tools.
She managed to pick up a regional version of the WBC title, a regional version of the green belt. She seems to be going the WBC route in order to corner Jessica McCaskill, pin her down, and get a fight with her. Now, to my knowledge, Dee Allen is not yet Jessica McCaskill's mandatory challenger by way of the WBC. But if she keeps this up, if next year looks like this year, it's only a matter of time before Dee Allen comes a-knocking, and Jessica McCaskill still is a champion up there at 147 pounds. She's still in possession of the green belt, at least for the time being, and several others.
She's still a unified champion.
I'll tell you this much. Even though Chantel Cameron beat Jessica McCaskill decisively this past weekend, beat her handily, it was a bad style matchup for Jessica, you understand. And Chantel Cameron is a well-schooled boxer that's got a mean streak, the same as Jessica. She just goes a different way about employing it. Better still, that was a bad stylistic matchup for Jessica, it was. But don't get it in your head that based on that fight, everybody's going to go in there with that same Jessica McCaskill and do what Chantel did.
Dee Allen is a promising fighter. Shows good boxing, good power, very good power.
Dee Allen right now, at only 4-0, 4 wins, no losses, no draws, 3 knockouts. She's not ready for Jessica right now, you understand? So the sooner the fight happens, the more it favors the more experienced fighter. And that would be Jessica, who's also several years older than Dee Allen. She is. But better still, the sooner the fight happens, the more it favors Jessica.
I don't actually think that Dee Allen is on either Jessica McCaskill's radar or Rick Ramos. I don't think she is. Not yet.
Hell, ahead of the fight, the McCaskill people were talking about a potential Terry Harper showdown beyond the Chantel Cameron fight. And I think they still have their hearts set on that, more so than a Dee Allen fight.
But because things are going the way they're going, that Dee Allen is climbing up those ranks by way of the WBC, very soon she may not leave Jessica with much of a choice.
Seems to me she means to become Jessica McCaskill's mandatory challenger. She is looking to force a fight with her. So even if Dee Allen isn't on Jessica's radar now, very soon it might not matter.
I'm pretty sure Rick and Jessica, they still maintain a good working relationship with the people over there at Matchroom. And if at some point Terry Harper has a hankering for a McCaskill fight, you know, that could happen. But Terry has other options. She does. She has the option of pursuing the winner of this upcoming weekend's fight.
This upcoming weekend's unification match, junior middleweight between the reigning champions Natasha Jonas and Marie-Eve Dicaire. I think that takes priority over a McCaskill fight. But, you know, the McCaskill fight, it's not off the table. I don't think for a second Terry Harper's going to stay up there at 154 pounds. Not once Mary Spencer comes a-knocking. We've talked about that to no end. Better still, a McCaskill fight is something that could happen for Terry Harper, and a McCaskill fight is something Dee Allen wants to happen.
That's the difference. She is actively pursuing Jessica McCaskill.
Now, if the fight were tomorrow, I tell you straight away, Jessica's too experienced for Dee Allen, you know. Don't get it in your head that because Chantel Cameron beat her this past weekend that everybody beats her.
Jessica McCaskill's still one of the toughest customers anywhere at or around these weights. And Dee Allen, here and now, does not yet have the necessary experience to win a fight like that. So if the fight were tomorrow, I'd favor Jessica to win. The problem is, the fight's not tomorrow. We all know the fight's not tomorrow. We're not on the eve of such a fight. Though when the time comes, Dee Allen may be a more experienced fighter, certainly more experienced than she is here and now. This is just something to look out for, something that's going on behind the scenes. Dee Allen is targeting a Jessica McCaskill fight. In men's light heavyweight news, per tweet from Rob Tebbett of ID Boxing, Mauricio Suleiman confirms the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde will be ordered to face mandatory challenger Callum Smith next. But that's not all, folks.
There's more.
To clarify, should an undisputed bout be agreed between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, that would take priority, and Smith would then be ordered to face the winner of that fight. In other words, while Callum is in position to fight for the green belt, he's not standing in the way of the undisputed title fight between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, provided that Artur makes it past his WBO mandatory challenger, Anthony Yarde, early next year.
Yeah, we've already got one mandatory challenger bogging this fight down. We don't really need another. I'm not against Callum getting his title shot, but the undisputed light heavyweight title fight, that takes precedence.
If only they could convince Anthony Yarde to stand down and step aside. Anthony Yarde, who's supposed to be in action very soon, keep busy fight he's likely to win, and then he's supposed to take on Artur early next year in his neck of the woods in London. If only they could convince that guy to stand down and step aside, but the wheels are already in motion for that fight.
There's not much that can be done.
Now, Dmitry, he's likely going to take a little bit of time off and spend some of that money that he made, with his family, have some fun. And then, his focus will return to business. I mean, they really do have to get a move on when it comes to this. Matchroom and Eddie Hearn.
Bob doesn't want to have to deal with them. He doesn't want to have to. Thankfully, Eddie Hearn, he said Matchroom and DAZN won't stand in the way of this thing.
We talked about that in my previous video.
I've long maintained that the only way the fight goes down is if Dmitry Bivol crosses the street, crosses over to the ESPN side of things to do the fight.
It being that Bob Arum has no intention of sending Artur to DAZN.
At which point it then becomes a question of, what's the fight worth to Bob Arum? What's the fight worth to Top Rank? And are they willing to pay to play?
This is supposed to be the fight that not only Dmitry Bivol, but Bob Arum's horse in the race, Artur Beterbiev. This is supposed to be the fight that they both want, respectively, as fighters and unbeaten champions. They both say that they want it. So in a situation like that, where Matchroom is willing to send you their guy...
We've seen so many fights not happen, and Beterbiev being with Top Rank ESPN, would that be a challenge to make a fight with him?
No, I don't think so, because at the end of the day, we're not going to stop Dmitry Bivol for taking that opportunity through a TV situation. There's an easy deal to make there with Top Rank and DAZN. Maybe we speak to DAZN, and say, could he ever fight on ESPN or vice versa? I don't know. But at the end of the day, DAZN have been very good to Dmitry over these last couple of fights, and obviously we want to stay and support them. There's a dual broadcast, there's other options, but we don't want to get in the way at the same time. I think that's a real problem with boxing, that the broadcaster will stop a fight from happening, and DAZN have never really done that. I mean, they're new to the sport, they're fresh. They haven't yet been tarred with the bitterness brush, so they tend to accept that fighters want to make the big fights. And listen, Dmitry Bivol against Beterbiev is an unbelievable fight.
The onus is on you to get the deal done. The onus is on you to deliver.
As you would be negotiating, you would be dealing with Dmitry Bivol and his team directly, though even with that, beyond the Beterbiev fight, regardless of who wins, Dmitry or Artur, that really doesn't get Eddie out of Bob's hair.
Not really. Remember what Mauricio Suleiman said. So long as Dmitry and Artur can reach a deal, they'll stay their mandate. They'll stay their mandatory challenger. And Callum would just have to wait, but Callum still would be in the queue. He'd be in the queue waiting for the winner.
Not saying that he will or won't, but if Eddie Hearn feels like giving Bob Arum a hard time in that situation, he can, because as the WBC's mandatory challenger, Callum Smith has rights.
He does. If you offer him something, some amount of money, and he don't like it, he drives a hard bargain,
you guys don't reach a deal by the given deadline, well, it goes to a purse bid. And if it goes to a purse bid, it's going to be between you and Eddie and whoever else feels like bidding on this thing. And suddenly, a fight between Callum and the winner of that fight becomes more expensive to put on, because not only are you paying for the fight now, you've got to beat out Matchroom for the rights. Assuming Matchroom, in that situation, would want to go to a purse bid.
That if they don't want to just send Callum over, the same way they've already sent Bivol over, in that situation, if they want the rights for the fight, well, suddenly the fight becomes more expensive to put on.
I mean, we really are getting ahead of ourselves, because it all depends on whether or not Artur makes it past Anthony Yarde, and then it all depends on whether or not Artur makes it past Dmitry Bivol. If Dmitry Bivol emerges the winner of the fight, who's to say he doesn't just go back to Matchroom?
Depends on a lot of things. It's contingent upon a lot of factors, and you do have to remember that we're talking about two Russian imports here. Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, God bless them both. They're great fighters, but they're not big ticket sellers per se.
I mean, while Dmitry Bivol's profile has gotten a considerable shot in the arm, his profile and his stock, it is on the up and up. In a nutshell, Bivol versus Beterbiev as a fight, commercially,
It's a fight for the hardcores, man. If anybody's really invested in that fight, it's a hardcores. It ain't got mainstream appeal.
bizarre as boxing can be sometimes, a fight between Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, for example, has more of a profile amongst casual boxing fans and outliers, not just boxing fans and not just hardcores that follow the sport closely, but casual fans as well. That fight has more of a profile than this one. Even if Dmitry Bivol has gotten a considerable profile boost this entire calendar year, has Artur?
I'm just telling you, you gotta pay attention to what the fight is worth to Bob Arum, what the fight is worth to Top Rank. Are they willing to pay to play? Because we are talking about two Russian imports here, after all.
It's a legitimate question. Commercially, what is this fight worth to Top Rank, and are they willing to do what they need to do and satisfy the financial demands of both teams? Are they willing to do what they need to do to get the fight over the line, to get it done? If Matchroom ain't going to stand in your way, and this ain't going to be some your side of the street, my side of the street thing, if they're willing to send you this guy...
You gonna do the deal, or are you not gonna do the deal?
Another angle of this story that I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the unlikely event that Anthony Yarde upsets the apple cart for an aging Artur Beterbiev, on 37, going on 38-year-old legs, an injury-prone, albeit very capable fighter. If by some chance Anthony were to beat this guy, what does that do to the situation? How would that affect and change things?
Artur says he wants to fight Dmitry, but if Artur gets beat by Anthony, is Anthony going to want that Dmitry Bivol fight, or is he going to try to nurse those belts and milk it?
Not saying that he will or won't so much as if he were to. If he does, in the unlikely event he beats Artur, what does that do to the undisputed title fight? It's a ways to go before we get there. We're not on the eve of this fight, you understand. There's more
road to travel. More work needs doing.
along with some other aspects of the WBC's convention, which is in full swing. You know, the Callum Smith mandate, the Artur stuff, the Dmitry stuff. Mauricio Suleiman said that all fighters from Russia and Belarus will be removed from its rankings effective immediately pertaining to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This isn't the first that we've heard of this.
Myself, I ain't got a preference. I ain't got a stance on it. I just don't really understand it. You're saying that you're not going to rank any fighters from Russia or Belarus.
Even though one of your champions is from Russia, at least one. Artur Beterbiev, the guy we were just talking about. And I understand that he's not actually based out of Russia and he has a Canadian citizenship. He's actually based out of Canada. I get it. But
the WBC themselves just said that they would hold off on ordering the Callum Smith fight so long as Dmitry and Artur could reach a deal. Dmitry Bivol is a Russian fighter, a Russian champion.
so when you say that, you know, you're not going to rank any Russian fighters, you're going to remove all Russian and Belarusian fighters from your ranks effective immediately, you are still leaving the door open for at least one Russian fighter, one Russian champion, to fight for one of your titles, your light heavyweight title, against your light heavyweight champion, Artur Beterbiev. It is a bit conflicting and confusing. I don't know specifically why the WBC is choosing to get involved in all of this. I mean, this is a political issue. The fighters that you're removing from your ranks, they ain't got no say-so in this war, this invasion. They aren't the ones that started it, and they're not the ones that can end it.
Some of these guys, some of these girls, they're just caught in the crossfire, powerless in all of this. You're essentially alienating them based on a decision that they, as individuals and athletes, didn't make.
And are powerless to stop. There's nothing that they can do about it. Now, these Russian and Belarusian fighters and athletes, you know, they're banned from the WBC's ranks. They can probably still go the WBA or the WBO route, maybe the IBF. I don't know that these other organizations, these other alphabet organizations, are going to follow suit to what the WBC is doing. To my knowledge,
They don't have any bans like this in place for either Russian or Belarusian fighters. So even if you can't fight for the green belt, you can probably still fight for the other three.
it's really just the WBC taking this hardline stance on a war that has nothing to do with them. I mean, they're not into geopolitics, just that kind of stuff. They're supposed to be a non-profit organization in the sport of boxing that seems to operate like a private organization, making up their own rules as they go along, as they see fit based on whatever it is they think, and they choose to take this hardline stance. They don't have to.
And if I'm being honest, I don't even think they would take a stance like this if the proliferation of fighters in their rank standings were either Russian or Belarusian. They're only making this decision because they can afford to.
How many Russian champions are they collecting sanctioning fees from? How many Russian and Belarusian champions? How many Russian and Belarusian fighters are there really in the WBC's rankings here today? I think they're just making a decision for appearance's sake, taking a stance for appearance's sake, I should say.
If the vast majority of fighters in their ranks that they were collecting sanctioning fees from were from either Russia or Belarus, would they still take this stance? Would they still make this decision? Call me cynical.
But like I said, I think they're just taking a hardline stance for appearance's sake, to at least appear sympathetic to the Ukrainian plight. And there are better ways to do that than this. Sending aid, medical supplies, things that people need.
That would help the war effort a lot more than this.
I don't really understand this, but I don't have to.